Hi and welcome to a video for QNAP Shop. QNAP Shop is a leading QNAP reseller. We've been one of QNAP's top resellers for 7 or 8 years now. This video we're going to go through some of the frequently asked questions that we get through our sales team about what is a QNAP in 2024, what are the features, what are the things you might need to look at when you're looking at purchasing. So this video is going to cover most of that and then a little bit more detail at some of the things that you can look at from a buying perspective, some of the hardware features, some of the software features. So hopefully we can get you an informed decision when you're looking at purchasing. So we're going to go through, I suppose before anyone can make a purchase, we often run through with the people what they can use the device for. So there's usually more than one use for a NAS. So we like to make you aware of what those uses could be so that you go into looking for a model, knowing what you're potentially going to use it for, as opposed to purchasing something and then realizing what you could have used it for. So the first main use that most people find themselves using a NAS or needing a NAS is to centralize all of their storage. So if you've got laptops, desktops, old external hard drives, USB memory storage, anything like that, the idea with the NAS is you bring all of that storage into one location where you can protect and secure that data and keep it safe from hardware failure, keep it safe from being lost or damaged. But just main thing is bring it all into a centralized location and keep it secure. The second use is to protect your data. So if you've got a laptop, desktop, Windows, Linux, Mac, doesn't really matter what it is, you've got to protect that data, or it's safer to protect your data. So being able to back up your machine, whatever it is, to a QNAP NAS means that in the event of a theft, loss of data, hardware failure on your main device, you've still got a copy of all your data ready to go when you're back up and running. One of the most common uses we get is for family photos. A lot of people have got years and years worth of photos in albums. They spend a lot of time and effort digitizing those images, and a QNAP is perfect to be able to sort, archive, organize all of those photos so you can then share them and use them in a much easier way rather than pulling out albums. You could share them online to friends or family that are not local to you, in another country, interstate, wherever. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to bring in all of the family photos, put them in one location, organise them, protect them, back them up, which is so important when we're talking about our history and our memories. So another common use is for media streaming. There's a lot of people that have got old DVD, Blu-ray collections. You might have digitised them or might be planning on digitising them. So a NAS is a great way to centralise all of that data into one location. So you can upload all of your DVDs, digitise everything, get it onto the NAS, and you've got all of your media in one location. You can stream it to televisions, you can stream it to laptops, desktops, mobile phones, anything in the house, even out of the house. So again, it gives you a nice centralised storage location for all of your media files, where it's secure against being damaged or lost, and you won't have to worry about keeping a backup copy of it again. In 2024, a QNAP NAS can act as an NVR, network video recording device. So if you've got security cameras or you're planning on putting security cameras in, the QNAP NAS has built-in software that's free. It has 8 channels free. And it will basically allow you to completely manage your cameras. It can handle all of your storage requirements, set up the cameras, It's a very, very cost-efficient way of monitoring and managing your security camera, built in, ready to go. So once you've worked out what you actually want the NAS for, we can then start looking at the different models, what each model is kind of designed for, and what the differences between those models are. There's a few key areas that we want to look at to let you make the right decision, or to help you make the right decision. Hardware differences between the model is the main one. It's important to note that each of the QNAP models has access to the same software and applications. So it's basically the same operating system, same applications. You can't pick the wrong model based on the software side of it. So we really focus on the hardware when we're looking at making the final decision. So once you've got an idea of the capacity, you can then look at how many bays are going to be in the NAS. It's important to note that you don't have to fill the NAS completely. So if you were to get a 6-bay NAS and start with 2 or 3 hard drives, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to fill all the bays. You could even have the bays as spare bays to copy data to, insert a drive, copy data onto it, remove it, store it somewhere else. So it's quite flexible with these NAS today, what you can do with the storage. So absolutely you can start with a few drives, add more as you need them. It's often better to say go for a 4-bay NAS and put 2 drives in, and then you can add 2 more drives as you go, rather than go with a 2-bay NAS, fill up those drives and then have to replace them after a few years. So it might sound simple, but calculating the amount of hard drive capacity, the amount of data capacity that you're going to use, is really important when determining what size of device that you're looking at. Is it going to be a 1-bay, a 2-bay, a 4-bay, an 8-bay device? So having a think about how much data you have now across all of your devices, how much data you think you'll grow year on year. It's a really good starting point to work out, okay, what hard drives do I need, what capacities and how many, and also a RAID configuration. So if you haven't looked up RAID, RAID is how you can protect the drives from failing, or protect your data from being lost in the event of a drive failure. So trying to calculate how much capacity you actually need is really important, so that you don't find that you're needing to replace hard drives in a few years' time because they're not big enough and the NAS isn't big enough. There's 2 main form factors or types of NAS when it comes to the shape. We've got our desktop form factor device, which just sits on a desk similar to a computer. There's also rack-mounted devices, which are generally for business use or home users that have got a server rack, and they'll actually go into a server rack, different style of NAS. But once you decide between a desktop or a server rack mounted device, it's going to narrow down the options for you. So that's a good place to start. Network connections are a very important part of a network attached storage device. These days we've got standard gigabit connections, 2.5 gigabit, 10 gigabit, we've got 10 gigabit copper, 10 gigabit fiber, we've even got Thunderbolt connections, USB-C connections. There's lots of different network connection types. It's really important to try and work out what connections you have on your existing devices. So if you're a Mac user, do you want to go down the Thunderbolt path? Do you have an adapter Ethernet to Thunderbolt, where you can just go with a normal Ethernet device? When you're having a look through, sometimes there's a big price jump between a standard normal 2.5 gigabit Ethernet connection and a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection or a Thunderbolt connection. So if you need very, very fast file transfers, it's really important that you have a look at the available connection types on each of the models to make sure that you're getting something that's able to cope with what you're expecting. So if we know the type or the form factor of the NAS we're looking at, we know the connections that we want on the NAS. The last thing to really look at is the scalability and the processing power of the device. So each of the QNAPs is going to have a processor. It might be an Intel processor, it might be an AMD processor. There's lots of varying speeds and types of processors, from very, very entry level to enterprise grade. So as you're looking through, if it's just for basic backup and storage, you don't need a very high-end expensive processor. If it's going to be virtualization or you're going to run lots of applications, then you may look at stepping up the processing power that's in there. RAM is also quite important. The more you're doing with the device, the more RAM you may need in the device. Having a look at the scalability of the device means, does it have upgradable RAM? Some models do, some models don't. If it does have upgradable RAM, what does it come with? What type of slots are available? So you can calculate what you might be able to add in future. And then one of the hidden features of a lot of these boxes is PCIe expansion slots. So these are slots that are in the NAS. They're sometimes pre-populated with 10 gigabit cards, sometimes they're empty, but there are models that you can get that don't have 10 gigabit Ethernet connections or Thunderbolt ports or anything like that, but they have spare slots. So that if in future you decide you need a bit of extra power, need a bit of extra storage, extra transfer speeds, they have the ability to scale up as you need the device to do more. You can add more to allow it to do it. So scalability is something that it's a bit of a tricky question. Often that's the point where people come through and talk to our salespeople. It's what can the device do in future? Can I upgrade it? Can I add to it? It's often a question that people don't quite understand or look at when they're going through the purchase process, but really good to understand what the capabilities of the device are, not just for now, but for in 5 years' time when technology has changed, when data has changed. It's good to be able to know what the box is going to be able to do. So that should give you enough information to at least maybe narrow down to a few final models. When you get to that point, please reach out. We're happy to give you a hand suggesting which way to go. We've covered most of the commonly asked questions. There's a lot of advanced technical questions that we don't cover. But if you need help with that sort of thing, let us know. You can leave a comment or any suggestions, feedback. We're always happy to hear from our viewers, and we will see you in the next video.